What's up, everybody? It's Jared with Capture the Magic, and recently one of the Magic Kingdom ferry boats was involved in an accident. And if you're unfamiliar with this, this is one of the transportation methods from the Ticket and Transportation Center that takes guests to the Magic Kingdom. And this happened last Wednesday, and we're starting to get some details on this, and it's kind of wild what seems like happened here. So we have a couple of articles we're going to read through about some first-hand accounts about what happened, and thus far, Disney has not made a statement on this. So we're going to read through this and give some thoughts on it here. So first one here is from Blog Mickey, and it says, people weren't just falling, they were flying. Walt Disney World ferryboat crash leaves numerous injured, and Disney remains silent. It says a Walt Disney World ferryboat crashed late Wednesday night, leaving numerous people injured, according to reports. The crash happened during stormy weather at the General Joe Potter ferryboat, impacted the dock at the Transportation and Ticket Center. Information about the incident is being kept under wraps by Walt Disney World. Disney has not responded to numerous requests made by blogmickey.com and other local media outlets. We have filed a public records request to the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District for more information about the incident that reportedly left more than a dozen people injured. Man. So if you're unfamiliar with ferry boats, there's a couple places where you can sit down, but most of the areas on this boat are standing room only. And so if you're hitting something in this boat, obviously this can lead to a lot of people being injured, because there's really, in some places here, there's nowhere to really grab onto, as you're just basically in there with a whole bunch of people going across the waterway. So the report from local media station Fox 35 offers the most insight into the incident so far, with a few guests going on the record about the crash. One guest described the conditions as including heavy rain during the incident. The guest said that the ferryboat was cruising along when it impacted the dock, coming to a dead stop. Ooh. The guest said that people weren't just falling, they were flying after the ferryboat crashed. The guest said that it was a chaotic scene after the crash, with guests scattered everywhere. I mean, again, I'm not surprised to hear that being the case. If it was going and hit that dock and just came to an abrupt stop, there's nothing a lot of people on that ferryboat would have been able to do to brace themselves, and you would have had people just falling all over the place. A separate guest on vacation with her family said that the crash happened suddenly, sending people flying forward upon impact. The guest said that there were, quote, a lot of screaming and really hurt bad. The guest said that somehow the incident got worse when they got off the boat, saying that it, quote, it all went downhill, with no instructions from Walt Disney World cast members on what to do. Cast members reportedly just told everyone to get off the boat. Ooh, that's not good. A lot of this stuff that I think when incidents happen, and we've seen numerous times about fights at Disney World. There was one not that long ago, did a video on it talking about there was a fight that broke out at the World of Disney at Disney Springs. I'm starting to think there is a lapse in proper training for many cast members about when things happen. Like, what is the protocol to do? Because one would assume if you're a cast member on a ferry boat and it crashes, there's a protocol in place that you should do. Like, hey, are people hurt? Do you need to go to the site? Obviously, call the authorities, paramedics. Like, it seems like either there's not enough training, or sometimes maybe the cast members are just kind of in a panic mode and they don't really know what to do. But either way, that's not a great look if you just got in an accident and all they say is to basically get off the ferry. Because at that point, if you really do have injured people, you don't want to be moving them. Like, depending on the severity of the injuries, you don't want people trying to get people off there if they're in a state where they need medical assistance. It says some guests were unable to exit the boat due to injuries, and photos show the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District Fire Department heading onto the ferry boat with a stretcher and other medical equipment. Another guest echoed the statements about Disney cast members not providing any help following the incident. It says, quote, I have loved Disney all my life, but the way they handled the situation was unacceptable. We were all left in the dark. There was no announcement made after hitting whatever we hit at full speed. The captain was not apologetic whatsoever. Every single person on the packed ferry was thrown forward. I mean, these things aren't traveling at like breakneck speeds, but you're talking about a massive boat with a ton of people. I'd say if you're at top speed on these things, you're probably looking at 15, 20 miles an hour, maybe somewhere around that range, might be higher, I'm not really sure. But obviously going at that speed on that big of a vessel, hitting something, dead on and coming to a complete stop, obviously that is going to cause a lot of people to fall and easily have a lot of injuries. Unconfirmed reports on social media were that there were dozens of people injured, with Disney remaining silent about the ferryboat crash. We're waiting on the public record request to confirm details about the incident. This is not the first time that guests have been injured on the ferry boats that transport guests between the Magic Kingdom parking lot and the theme park. Back in July 2021, the General Joe Potter boat, same one as this recent incident, was involved in a crash that resulted in 4 guests being injured. The 4 guests reported minor injuries, but 1 guest was transported to the hospital. But it says this incident appears to have led to far more injuries and more significant injuries. And then there's even more details from WDWNT on this, and a little bit more firsthand accounts from people that were on the ferry boat whenever it crashed into the dock, is what it seems like. It says, during a storm on Wednesday night, July 30th, the General Joe Potter ferry boat reportedly hit the Transportation and Ticket Center dock late in the night. According to Pulse Point, there was a mutual aid call at 12:02 a.m. corresponding to the address for the TTC ferryboat landing. Mutual aid in this case refers to reciprocal assistance from multiple agencies across jurisdictional boundaries, particularly when the emergency is too big for one agency to handle. The call was closed at 2:06 a.m. So obviously there were a lot of 911 calls if you had multiple jurisdictions showing up on this. Like, this is a big deal. This is not just a minor incident, which is probably why Disney is being silent on this. And I'm sure, as much as you would like to think that Disney's concerned about the guests that were hurt, they're probably in kind of CYA mode of in case of lawsuits, which is very likely to happen if people were actually injured on this, which is probably why you're not hearing a peep from Disney. It said, we were previously reported that there were a total of 19 transports to local hospitals. Man, with at least 8 people having major injuries. Dozens of others were treated on site, according to eyewitness reports on social media. As we don't know the distribution of injuries among guests versus cast members. And then you have some guests that speak out about this. It says now several more guests have come forward in interviews with Fox 35 to detail their experiences on the night of the crash. Tammy Hackett was visiting the park with her daughter, son-in-law, and 3 grandchildren. The family was on the lower deck of the ferry boat with at least 2 children in a stroller when the crash occurred. Said suddenly we crashed into something and we all went flying forward, falling. The stroller landed on its back, causing the girls to hit their heads. Man, I hate to hear that. I mean, it's bad enough when anybody gets injured in an incident like this, but when you're talking about kids, like, I've ridden this with my kids and our family numerous times, and I just hate to think about a kid in a stroller just wanting to go home and go to bed, getting hurt in an incident like this. At the very least, they're going to be shooken up and traumatized about this. Absolutely hate hearing that. That is very unfortunate. A lot of people screaming and really hurt bad. We got the girls out and they docked. And honestly, that is when it all went downhill. Not only was there no announcement on what to do when injured, they just had us get off the boat. Hackett later said she grabbed an EMT to check on her granddaughters, though they were all later cleared. Well, I'm glad the girls and the kids in the strollers were not hurt. Another guest reported that her granddaughter's stroller was completely flipped upside down, recalling little to no communication from Disney following the crash. And that's the thing, too. If it's at midnight, this means right after, park closing, those ferries are going to be full. If you've ever been to Magic Kingdom when the park closes, there are huge lines of people waiting to get on the ferries to take them to the TTC. A third guest, Heidi Goldsworth, confirmed heavy rain during her time on the ferry boat and described the scene after the crash. She said, it was so sudden and it was so chaotic, completely chaotic afterwards. Passengers were helping passengers get up, checking on people, making sure that everybody was okay. I wrote it in 1971 when the park opened with my mom, so I've been writing it sporadically ever since the park had opened. I had never heard of any accidents and certainly had never been in one before. It seems such a quiet, easy ride across the lake that you don't think that something's going to happen like that, but it was definitely a boat crash. It says Fox 35 reached out to Disney World and the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District for comment, but have not received an answer. No word has been given on the ultimate outcome of this incident, or if any guests later received compensation. I'm going to assume that has already begun, because I have a feeling Disney is in, again, CYA mode on this, and wanting to avoid lawsuits that are very likely to come. It is also unclear if the incident was caused by the storm, human error, or some mechanical malfunction, as there is little official information about it at this time. You don't like to think that when you're just taking the transportation in the parks, whether it's Disney, Universal, or any other theme park, that these things can happen, but obviously they can. Buses can get in accidents, boats can have issues. But you're talking about these ferry boats. This is honestly, hearing about this, like being at closing time, hitting seemingly the dock at full speed. Really, the way that, at least from how it's being described in this article from the eyewitnesses here, there's nobody to put blame on any of this but Disney. It's either was the weather involved in the issue with this. If that's the case, then they shouldn't have been running the ferry boats in bad weather. If it was a mechanical issue, that's still Disney's fault, and either should have been known about, or if this was a prior issue that wasn't fixed before, which would be even worse. So that would be on Disney. And if it's pilot captain error on this, that's also on Disney, because that would come down to hiring practices, or there's something wrong with the dock. Like, either way, whatever the incident here is, nobody on that ferry boat is at cause for this. I think many times Disney is sued for kind of some silly stuff over the years, as people, I think, just looking for some, a payout or looking for some easy money. In this situation, if 19 people are hospitalized, you got people flying, hitting a dock at full speed on a ferry boat, there's really no valid defense Disney can run where they're not at fault for this situation. And that's probably why Disney's being very silent on this, is because if they talk, it could make it worse, if they could admit fault or whatever the case is. I'm sure their lawyers have told them basically to just not say anything right now. But I think undoubtedly you are going to see multiple lawsuits come out of this. And in this situation, I think it's justified in the fact that you're just on a ferry boat wanting to go back to either your home or your hotel, and you run seemingly from some descriptions full speed into the dock. And I hope and pray that there weren't significant injuries. I hope there were no kids hurt, and people that were injured hopefully have a full recovery, because that's just, you want to go to a theme park, enjoy your time with your family, create memories. And the last thing you want is for an incident to happen and wind up in a hospital from riding a ferry boat going back to your car. I mean, just not a great scenario, not a great look for Disney. And from the descriptions of people that were on the ferry boat as well, it seemed like there's also a lapse in perhaps the cast member training for incidents like this, as there was no announcement about the accident, and then afterwards just telling people to get off of the ferry boat. There could be people with significant injuries that don't need to be moved, that need to wait for paramedics to show up. So it seems like there may be a failure on the proper training of cast members on how to handle this, or the cast members potentially, which is very possible. They just sort of panicked and didn't really know what to do in this situation, as it's not every day that you have a ferry boat have an accident like this. So you could have had cast members really thrown off guard, not know what to do here. But either way, all of this basically lies at the feet of Disney. I don't see how this would not fall at the feet of Disney, because even if you're claiming Mother Nature, then you shouldn't have been running the ferry boats in the first place. And I'm sure, as many times with issues in theme parks, they don't want this to get out there, because they don't want a bunch of people thinking that they're going to ride ferry boats and the buses and transportation systems and have incidents at Disney World, as that would obviously be something that a lot of people would be very hesitant to go to theme parks if that was a risk they would have to think about. And you're talking about a lot of people on these ferry boats. I don't know the number that we would say, but I would say easily you could fit a couple hundred people on these ferry boats. And if it's at closing time, it could be even higher than that. And we've ridden the ferry boat with my family numerous times. And it's always kind of gone through my head, like, what if? Because you're just standing there. Again, unless you are on the side with the guardrails or a couple of places that actually have bench seats, for the most part, you're just standing there. So if you do hit anything on that, there's nothing to stop your momentum. And then you have people crashing into each other. You have people falling around. So the descriptions of how it looked, the chaotic scene about people flying and falling, is not surprising one bit. And especially if they went into that thing very hard, you can easily talk about broken bones. You could be talking, who knows? They said 19 people potentially hospitalized. That is a lot of people. But I think this is a very bad look for Disney in terms of not only did this incident happen, but the reaction and how the cast members handled it. And then now Disney basically being silent on this, which isn't really surprising. That very well could be what Disney's lawyers are telling them, is to not make a statement about this. Don't admit fault until they figure out what happened here. And I'm sure at some point we'll hear more details about this when they do the investigations and things like that. But at this point, Disney's not saying anything, and they're not even talking to like the local media outlets either. So Disney's being very tight-lipped on this. But we hear more about this, we will let you know about it on here. But for now, I hope and pray the people that were injured on there, have a full recovery and are okay. and figure out what happened here. And when we do, we will talk about it on here and let you know about it. By the way, that is going to be it, though, for this video. So if you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel as we do all its coverage here of Universal Studios, Epic Universe, Disney World, and pop culture. And let us know in the comments, what do you think about all this? And until next time, we will see you later.